Everybody, welcome back to the Iron and Oak Sawmill. We're on video 4 of the bar top build. We're going to be doing some sanding, some butterfly work or bow tie work, and what else? Some penetrating epoxy work on some of the edges that are a little soft. That'll firm those right up, and we'll be able to work with those a lot better. First off, I think we're going to get started with the bow ties. Okay, what the customers asked for is 3 bow ties along the joint here. We've got 3 bow ties laid out here, all the same size. And these are not going to be hand-cut hand-cut bow ties. I do have a jig that I use to do this, to make the bow ties and also route the recess. These are more decorative than they are structural, although they do have some structural advantages to them. Okay, what we're bringing up here to work on the butterflies or bow ties, we've got our material, about a 1/2 inch thick, black walnut, requested by the customer. Our template, this size here is what we're looking for. That's about a 3-inch butterfly. Okay, what we have here is a bushing installed in the router base. What we'll do when we cut the material out for the bow tie itself, we'll have just this bushing on there. Then we'll have this reducing bushing in there, I guess is what they call it. That just slides over top of that, held on with a small O-ring inside of there. And we'll use that to trace the template for the recess in the top of the bar top. What that'll do is create a perfect match. The only thing we have to do is square the corners of the recess in the bar top, drop the butterfly in, and we're good to go. Okay, we've got our template set up here on a nice looking section of the black walnut stock. It's got a clamp down here, although you could use double-sided tape and just here off the bottom, put a little spacer underneath there, clamp it down there. Go ahead and get the router. I'm going to have to freehand it down into the material at first until I touch the edge of the bushing, and I'll slide it over and let it drop into place. Lift it on out of there. And we had the router sled backing it up. That's 2. I cut one off camera just to make sure we're doing it right. Let's get set up on another piece of material here. Let it come to a complete stop. There you have it. It's an extra butterfly just in case we need one. Okay, got this all cleaned off here. Go ahead and put our other bushing on there. We'll be ready to start routing the recess in the top of the bar top. Okay, we got our template set up on our first bow tie. Deb, can you point that which one I'm using over there? There you go. Thank you, Deb. I'm going to be routing that entire area out. I set the router bit just a tad shallow of the bow tie so we don't sink the bow tie way down in there. So we should be about a 30-second proud of the surface. Thing out. done, but we got a lot of small pieces building up in there. I don't want to catch anything on the router bit and break it, so go ahead and clean that out. Oh, not too bad so far. Let's keep going. Now what we have to do, clean up the corners of our bow tie and square the corners of that. This is the tiniest amount of material. And I have to admit, I'm not that handy with a wood chisel, so. Easier. That looks pretty good. There's not a whole lot of material left to take out of that corner. It's only a 1/16 of an inch radius in there. Okay, it's going to clean up the corners. Clean up the corners of the bow tie here a little bit. A little bit of material kicked over on those. There we go. This black walnut's much easier to to cut with the chisel than and I do not want to hammer this in there right now. There we go. That's going to be a nice snug fit. On the bottom of these, so let me see, which is the most interesting grain? I kind of like this one. Gives that little bit of crisscross pattern in there. The reason I'm asking is making this the bottom. There we go. It's not a punky piece or anything. Nice, fits nice all around. What you want to do is, without cutting your hand, go ahead and take the bottom off of here. A little chamfer on the corners. Give it a little bit of clearance in the bottom of the hole there, or the bottom of the recess. Should probably put this in a vise. There we go. You don't have to take much off. Just a little bit. Just create a little clearance down in the bottom of that recess for the bow tie to sit all the way in. Knock the tips of those corners off. There we go. I could glue this one in now, but it would actually get in the way of doing the others. So, and just for fun, I'm going to mark these on the bottom. Put a 1 here and a 1 in there. And that way I'll know where each one goes. Although they should all be identical. This one seems to fit real nice. All right, on to the next one. So let's go ahead and route the second one. Come to a stop. Clean that out. Let's go ahead and finish that up. A couple of high spots in there yet. Alright, let's just go ahead and set up and route the final one. Let me see how we want to do this one. Watch, this will be the one I got to tape down. So, here we go. Don't know why I didn't run that one all the way across to begin with. Okay, now this stuff is sort of kind of forgiving, but you don't really want to stick it down and pick it back up, because, and I know there's other ways of doing this with masking tape, super glue. I'm going to be floating out in nowhere because this section of it's going to be all the way off the edge. Yep. And at that point, turn it around. Now we'll get more contact surface. Line up your points. All right, just stick that down. I'm still going to put a clamp over here. And up there, can you reach that, yellow? Still laying out the shop. There we go. Now just something to catch this corner here, something over here, and the tape is, like I said, I do not want this to move. It moves, my router wanders off. I've just messed up all the hard work we've done here so far. So. And there you have it. Now, pull that off. Just let the chisel right down. This is a real hard spot here. Well, it's right near that knot. That makes sense. Just cleaning up these corners. A couple of the corners it's a little rough. We can't take off too much, especially up at the face. And that is the face, so we'll leave that go. Around here. Is that the face? That is the face, so be careful not. Hey, any suggestions on a good set of chisels, guys? Let me know. A little bit. Don't go up to the face, though. You don't want to do that. Got all of our bow ties made. The recess is routed out. Everything's cleaned up. These are ready to be glued in. Okay, again, our glue of choice for this job, Type Bond 3, waterproof, interior exterior grade glue. And just squeeze some around in the recess. Take a brush, brush it around, go on the sides. You have to watch is that too much glue down on the bottom of this hole won't allow the bow tie to go in. So, hey Deb, can you hold the camera while I do this, please? If I keep it sitting on there, I'm going to be bouncing all over the place. So, right here, get yourself a block and your mallet. Nice. Just what we're looking for. Go ahead, we'll do the same with the rest of them. Get them all glued in. Make sure your recess is clean. Get your glue in there. You can always, and again, definitely make sure you got the right side of the bow tie facing outward. Now, I didn't want to drive these down in there, dry fitting them, Yeah, because good luck getting them out. These are a snug fit. So you get your bow tie glued up. Glue around the edges. Try to pull out some of that excess. You got room in the next one here. And number 3. Ready? Last one going in. That is set, I believe. Nice. Nice snug fit on all of them. I don't see any gaps. All right, success. Bow ties are in. I'm happy. We can wipe the glue off a little bit and go ahead and sand these right down flush. Actually, it's probably a good idea because if there is any gaps, that I didn't see any, but if there is any gaps, the glue and the sawdust or the sanding dust will fill them right in. So, because we're going to sand these with, and you will have seen this in the sawmill short by now, our new sander. This is the Festool RO150 Rotex. This thing is a beast when it comes to removing material, and let's set that on the aggressive mode. And it's on 6. Dust collector will come on when I throw the switch, but I need hearing protection. What I don't have, I don't need it. I don't get any dust from this thing. It is awesome. That. Flush. Beautiful. You catching that?
Nice.
Nice. No gaps. It's closed up beautifully. Let's go ahead and knock this one down. Look at that, 16th inch of material, zip, gone, awesome. A little bit of a high spot there. vacuum running just a little bit after we're done shutting it off. Let's clear the dust out of the hose. And that's it. That thing is a beast. You actually have to be careful you don't remove too much material. So, okay, this thing is a beast. Takes that material right down. What we'll do is get this set up, get my mess cleaned up, and get this set up. Take all the router marks out from earlier when we flattened it. And we'll switch over to this 120, which is the next grid up that I have. And that, man, that is pretty close to smooth. But on the top, I'll go to 220. The bottom, I went to 120 already. So that part is done. I'll go to 220 here. But first, we're going to get working on these edges. This is one thing you don't want to use on pointed areas like this. If you do, you better be ready to pay or buy another pad, because that'll chew a hole right into it. That happens with any random orbit sander as well. What I could do is not, they want this rounded somewhat, so I'll round that off, take it down with the belt sander probably, then use my other random orbit sander to take that down. All right, but let's get to cleaning up these edges. Take a really nice shot of these bow ties. Nice. Yeah, I know they're not hand-cut bow ties. Very nice. Anyway, I got some leftover pieces of bark here. Just a putty knife. Good. You don't want to gouge in here real deep. You want to keep your really nice live edge. But you want to get yourself in under this bark. Peel it up. The biggest time bark stays on for you is if the tree was down or cut down in the wintertime. Late fall, winter. The bark will manage to stay on a lot easier. These were not. These were taken down in the summer, milled in the summer, and just, I assume, there we go. Instead of beating that with my hand, get the wood mallet here. There we go. Okay, somewhere over here, maybe just past where I took this bark off, is where we're going to have to trim this one off. So, really no need to go here for now. I'm going to find out where that cutoff point is. But go ahead, get as much of this off as you can with the scraper. This one started to form some burls on it, so we've got some pointy spots in it that will need to come off. Just flatten them down a little bit if you want to leave as much live edge effect as you can. Most of my live edge, when I do them, I hand sand it. Getting in here with a draw knife and trying to rip off the bark and doing everything else, you take away the actual true live edge. In my book. Call me a purist. You can see we've got an edge here that's not natural live edge. This is a chainsaw mark here. And he wants to round this over and angle this up to look like live edge, which I could do some with a draw knife and some with my belt sander. Again, I don't want to go over these sharp edges with the RO150. Do not want to tear up that pad. That thing's perfect for sanding nice flat surfaces and smoothing things down that way. This is an edge I'll go out with a draw knife. Try to knock this down some. Nasty stuff. I might have to just take this down with the belt sander first. Hey, like I mentioned before, once this is a live edge, of course, well, like I said, a lot of people jump on here with a draw knife to rip all this stuff down and try to flatten it out. You know, yeah, it might leave a slope to it, but they flatten it out too much. There's a lot of little bumps and ridges and things in here that if you hand sand this to get through these this black layer, this is like the inner bark or last of the bark on here, you hand sand that off and you get a much more natural edge than when you hit it with a draw knife or heavy sander or something like that. All right. So what I do, piece of 150 grit by hand, and you can see that black stuff is just like powder. It comes right off. You get down to this darker, or like dark brown layer after you get the black off. Now this here, I did have to sand that to get it to meet inside this corner. Two live edges don't always meet up properly. So I blended that in that way. But outside of there, you just hand sand. And all this darker color, for the most part, these darker spots should come off. You can leave the brown behind and this lighter, like reddish white color there, leave that behind. But you can see it coming off. Hand sanding leaves a more of a true natural edge or live edge in my book. Like if you sanded it, you'd knock that bump right off. The tree had that bump in it. It's solid. Leave it there. It's part of the tree. That's the way I look at it. If you can do this, do this. Some woods don't allow it. I have run into those. But in most of the cases when I do live edge, the bark's peeled off because the bark peels off real easy. Yes, this takes a little more work. Yes, to me it's worth it. Because once the finish is on here, this looks amazing. This is truly what nature put there for you. Don't take it away. Knocking it down too hard. You know, like this. This was broken out at some point in time. Just knock all the harsh edges off of it a little bit since it is splintered a bit. And leave it there. Doing real well. But you get the idea. You see how that looks now? You got a nice browns and light color whites and a little bit of reds in there. Yeah, I know this will probably raise the grain a little bit, but there you go. All the different tones pop out in there. Browns, blacks, whites, a little bit of reds in there. I like it. Okay, next up, we'll be mixing up a little bit of the Total Boat penetrating epoxy and get some of these little bit of softer sapwood sections painted over with that. That'll firm that right up, make it a lot easier to sand and finish. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn my mic on for the rest of this part of the video, but basically all we're doing is mixing up the total boat epoxy. It's a 2-to-1 mixture, 2 parts epoxy, 1 part hardener. It's a low temperature uh, epoxy, penetrating epoxy for a little bit colder environments. I think between 40 and 60 degrees is supposed to be applied, and it's will work fine this time of year in the shop. Again, it's a 2-to-1 mixture. We'll go ahead and get it mixed up and get it painted on. Okay, one other nice thing you can do with this product is thin it down with either MEK or acetone. I did have a little acetone on hand. Thin this down to the consistency I was happy with. And the thinner the consistency, the deeper penetration you get. And I was looking to get into about a half an inch deep into the some of the sapwood parts here. But the product's working out real well so far. And I can tell you right now, it did work out getting the sapwood solid again in sections and made it very workable. At this point, I continued around the bar top, applying consecutive coats of the penetrating epoxy to the softer areas, monitoring the absorption rate as I went. Once I noticed that the epoxy was no longer absorbing into the wood, I knew that I had enough applied. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this portion of the build up. Sorry about the silent section here, by the way. But I can tell you that the Total Boat penetrating epoxy worked out real well. We've got some nice solid surfaces to work with here for our next step. Did thin it down with a little bit of acetone. The thinner the product, the deeper penetration you get on the wood. So don't forget that if you try to use this product yourself. By the way, I'm not sponsored by these guys, but I can vouch for their product. It did work out well. It is awesome. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step in our next video, which will be sanding and finishing. Hopefully you'll stop by to join us for that one. If you're new to the channel and this is your first video, or you want to catch all this build video in one, I have it in a playlist. Let's go ahead and check that out if you want to watch it from the beginning. And if you are new, again, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate that. All the questions and comments we've been getting and suggestions on the build have been working out really well. Hopefully we're getting back to everybody. I do believe we're covering everyone. We haven't missed any questions or any replies yet that I know of. If I have, let me know. Be glad to help out. If you have any questions about anything we're doing or any of the products we're using, just ask. I'll be more than happy to share a link with you on that. Okay. Next part of the build, sanding and finishing. Hopefully you all come back here to check that out. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out for this one, and we'll see you at our next time.